I don't see him winning the stand-up. We saw obviously the body shots that de Ridder put on Bo Nickel and put him out in their fight when he was an underdog in that one. He passed the Robert Whittaker test, which to me is always a good sign that you're a contender in the weight class.
Welcome to First Strike, only on VSiN, the sports betting network. Here's your hosts, Dave Ross and Rob Moreno.
We are back, First Strike on VSiN, Dave Ross, and what a pleasure it is to be joined this week by none other than James Lynch, who does a great job. If you follow him on X at Lynch on Sports. And James, it's a real pleasure to have you in advance of UFC Vancouver, because that is where you are coming to us from here this week to get ready for this big main event coming up on Saturday night. First of all, how are you? How are the fighter conversations going from you? And what do you glean when you talk to a lot of these fighters, certainly on fight week?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on. It's cool to be here now with your new gig, new location and everything, Dave. So thanks as always. Always love doing your show. It's a nice home game for me this week, which is great. I'm actually at home right now, which is awesome. So I'll be doing the media day tomorrow and doing all that. And as far as like what I look for in interviews, obviously I do the standard stuff. A lot of fans out there don't like the typical, when you ask questions about like training camp and weight cuts and stuff, but that's the type of stuff I'm looking for from a betting perspective, to be honest. And I know a lot of you in particular in the gambling community want to know that stuff. So if a fighter's having a tougher weight cut, sometimes they will throw it out there and be like, look, I'm a little bit heavier than I'd like to be, or, maybe I'm training with this guy, maybe this will help. Those are little things that I pick up, and that's something that we do every week on the Gambler's Perspective on UFC Fight Passes. I got a segment on there called Lynch Bits, where I'll give you guys those little tidbits that may or may not factor into your betting when it comes to, picking fights, but they're things that I certainly like to explore with the fighters and just seeing, what are the vibes going in. I'm not going to ask the typical, how you feeling before the fight? Of course they're going to feel great, right? Everyone's going to say that, but, just little details that I do take note of. Did they switch camps? Did they do anything different this time around? These are like little things that I like picking up when it comes to doing my interviews.
Yeah, you and Yanni the Greek and Nick Kalikas, all great people and certainly great in this space. It's a fantastic show. So you got to check that out. And I can't wait I know those guys are going to be up there in Vancouver with you. I got to hear how those dinners go with you guys.
We'll take some photos. I'll post it on X. There you go. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. James, let's get to it here. When you look at the main event, you got RDR, and Reinier de Ridder has been on a heck of a run here, all the way now into possibly title contention here, if he can get a win this week against Brendan Allen. It always feels like Brendan Allen is that perennial title contender, but never quite there to be able to get that gold. When you look at these two guys and where they are in their UFC career, do you think an impressive win, one way or the other, hopefully you would prefer for a stoppage from one of these two guys, could vault them right back into title contention?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I think if Reinier de Ridder finishes this fight, I think he will get the next title shot. I think it's very interesting. They haven't announced what's next for Nassourdine Imavov. I think if they wanted to give him the title shot, they probably would have mentioned that already, but I think they're waiting to see what happens with this fight. Now, obviously, we've lost a little bit of luster with this fight. It was supposed to be Anthony Hernandez against de Ridder. Brendan Allen steps in, the same Brendan Allen who lost Anthony Hernandez earlier this year. But Dave, I got to be honest, unless I'm wrong about this fight, I really think this is Reinier de Ridder's fight to lose. Brendan Allen, if you look at a lot of his matchups, he typically does, especially when he comes to finishes, he typically wins by submission, and he's fighting a guy in Reinier de Ridder who we've seen fight a lot of ground guys like your Gerald Meerschaerts and Kevin Holland, and being able to pass those tests. And I just think if Allen can't get the finish by submission, I think it's going to be a long night for him. I don't see him winning the stand-up. We saw obviously the body shots that de Ridder put on Bo Nickel and put him out in their fight when he was an underdog in that one. He passed the Robert Whittaker test, which to me is always a good sign that you're a contender in the weight class. Like, I know it was a split decision, but I thought it was a very good performance. And I think for Brendan Allen, you're exactly right. We're waiting for that moment for him to get that signature win, and it hasn't come yet. Now, look, great performance in his last fight against Marvin Vettori, but I don't rate Vettori very high in the division anymore. I think it was a good win for Brendan to get him back on the winning track, but I think this is de Ridder's fight to lose. I'm expecting either a late stoppage in this one from de Ridder. I do think Allen will survive a little bit early, but at the end of the day, I do see de Ridder getting his hand raised, whether that is a late stoppage or a finish, and you're getting him under 3-1. I think those are pretty good odds, honestly, Dave. Like, if we're looking at what de Ridder's been able to do, I just don't see Brendan Allen as this threat as a middleweight contender right now. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see, but that's the way I'm leaning on Saturday.
And James, that's the interesting part, because right now you can get him close to 2-1 betting favorite here in RDR against Brendan Allen. Now, I assume as the week goes and we get closer to fight day on Saturday, he's going to be the fan favorite, RDR, right? So I know we got our American going up there and Brendan Allen. I expect this number to be on the rise on the RDR side, so it almost feels cheap here early in the week to get it. You mentioned the finishing potential, and he's shown that he does have some hands, as you mentioned, the body shots there to Bo Nickel to get him out of there. The total sitting here at 3.5 rounds. It is juiced to the under. Does that surprise you that,
Yeah.
that at least the books are saying early on that we think this fight won't go deep into midway point of the fourth round?
And I think what they're looking at there is the strength of schedule. They're not factoring in, I should say, the strength of schedule. So you look at RDR and who he's finished, Kevin Holland, Gerald Meerschaert. These are fighters that, sorry, not Meerschaert. Meerschaert was the guy that, anyways, kind of what I was getting at is that, actually, no, De Ridder did finish him. What am I talking about? Kind of what I'm getting at, though, if you look at who De Ridder's finished, it's lower level opposition. Same thing with Brendan Allen. Like, you look at who he's been submitting in the weight class. I think we saw in the Whitaker fight, we have seen Whitaker finish, by the way, too. Obviously, Duplessis finished him, and Chimaev obviously finished him very quickly. Kind of what I'm getting at, and my long-winded answer here is that I think that these two finish lower level opposition. I think the fact that this is a main event, it's 5 rounds, could lead to a finish. I like that total, though. It's only 3.5. If it was 4.5, I'd feel a little bit differently, but I think this fight goes over 3 rounds, closer to the fourth. So I think that's a great total and a great line there.
And James, that's exactly a plus money right now at plus $1.14 we're seeing here for the over 3.5. I kind of lean that way here early in the week. And I would say this, if you're looking for a pathway for the upset on the American in this side, I mean, you don't think you want to go to the ground with RDR, right? He's shown that he can be proficient, obviously, with the hands, but that if there's a perceived weakness, do you think that's what Brendan Allen would try to do, is make this a phone booth fight? Even though we know he loves to go to the ground, he loves to look for submissions down there. That might be a little bit too tricky. Do you think he'd have to beat RDR at the hands game in order to spring the upset?
Possibly, but that hasn't gone well for him either. If you look, and I know we're a couple fights removed back, but you remember the Sean Strickland fight where he was finished early in that one, Chris Curtis. There's been fights where Allen gets into those dog fights and it tends not to go well. You know what it really boils down to for me as well with Brendan Allen, unfortunately, is the fight IQ just isn't there. You look at the Anthony Hernandez fight, it was pretty clear that Hernandez, comparing the Dolidze fight to that fight, was compromised going into the Allen fight. We heard of a rib injury. We heard of, him being sick going into the fight. Allen, I think, could have taken advantage of that and he didn't. And I think that came down to fighter IQ. And I think that's another reason why Allen's been a little bit hindered in his career, and I think RDR has that in spades. So, again, another reason to like RDR here.
Enjoying the conversation here with James Lynch on First Strike. Again, give him a follow on X at Lynch on Sports. I do think some of your insights you get from the fighters is spectacular. If you can get into the head of Big Mouth Kevin Holland, I got to know what it says, because this guy loves to fight. It really doesn't matter win, lose, or draw. We know he's a fan favorite. He's going up against a real fan favorite this time in Mike Malott, north of the border there. So we think that's where the fan base is going to be. What does Big Mouth think in taking this fight here? I think he just likes to go maybe to enemy territory. And if somebody's down for a scrap, Big Mouth is ready for it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of spotlight on this fight. They did put this as the co-main event. I was actually a bit surprised they didn't go with Manon Fior and Jasmine Jasovicius, just because, Jasmine wins that fight, or even Manon, they're right in title contention. I think a little bit more stakes for that fight. But this is a fight I would just pass on, really. Kevin Holland did not look good in his last fight against Daniel Rodriguez, a fight that I think he should have won, to be honest. And it's weird, like, what version of Kevin Holland are we going to get? Are we going to get the guy that looked really good against Vicente Luque? Or are we going to get him a guy, struggling against a Daniel Rodriguez who's kind of been one of those fringe guys on the rankings as far as making it in? That's kind of what I think Mike Malott is as well. Malott can beat the lower level opposition. He can finish your, Adam Fugits and Johan Lainez and these guys. But when he gets that step up, he's had one step up, and that was the Neil Magny fight. A fight, by the way, that he was winning. He just gassed out, ended up getting submitted in that fight. That, to me, I'm still a little bit worried about that, because I don't think Malott has passed that test either. Now, is Kevin Holland that step up? Possibly, but I don't rate Kevin Holland very high either. The one prop I might look at is the over, or the fight goes the distance. Ooh. I know Malott does finish a lot. Yep. I look at Kevin Holland as well, though. Kevin Holland has gone the distance a lot his last couple fights, it seems. I know he did get the finish on Luque, but that might be a prop I look at, just in case, even if you think Holland won the fight, it's in Canada, they're going to be cheering for their guy. That's something that could be factored in the judging scorecards as well. I know Mike Malott and decision don't really go too well together, but I think this is a fight where the over and the fight goes the distance could potentially hit here.
And James, really good price point here. Holland obviously is the dog plus $1.05. If you don't want to go that route here, to your point about Mike Malott winning a decision, Malott, by the way, is $1.25 betting favorite. Over 2.5 right now. Plus money, plus $1.35 right now.
That.
In the marketplace. That's a really good price point here for the over 2.5 rounds. Don't even have to hit the bell. Just make sure you get through halfway point of round number 3. On the prelims here, James, before we run out of time, I want to get your thoughts on Davy Grant against Charles Jourdain. Of course, Jourdain, big favorite there in Vancouver as well, minus $1.70. Davy right now plus $1.42. What do you make of this prelim fight? Should be a banger.
Yeah, I hope I don't get kicked out of my country for this one, but I'm going with the UK fighter Davy Grant in this one.
Oh!
Davy Grant is I think severely underrated. He's a guy too that, yes, he's older. You look at the age, and that's probably what scares a lot of people off and go, okay, got to worry about this one. But you look at the durability there. He's a guy that's tough to finish. He's a guy that's going to bring it to you, get into an absolute war and a scrap. And you look at who he's losing to. It's some of the better fighters in the division as well. I think, Jourdain, this is only a couple fights he's had at bantamweight. I just don't think he's proven a whole lot yet. I don't think the wins are really set in stone. And I think Davy Grant, in the striking department can absolutely hang with Charles Jourdain. I also think he's got the wrestling to give Jourdain some fits as well. Remember, Grant trains at Syndicate MMA, which is John Woods, same coach as Khalil Roundtree, Merab Dvalishvili. They're working a lot on wrestling and all that stuff too. So yeah, I'm picking Grant for the upset. I mean, we're getting him at plus money. I think he's just one of these guys that doesn't get the respect. And I think everyone just thinks, okay, Jourdain's younger, he's looked good overall, but I think this is a spot where we could see an upset. And I think Grant might even be able to pull off a decision here in Canada. I do think he can get it done.
Wow, you got to win the crowd, like they said in Gladiator, and win your freedom, or at least win the fight on the cards if you can get it there. If you're Davy Grant, James, great stuff as always, my friend. Just for the people that don't know the fight atmosphere in Vancouver, and I know you've been to a couple of these north of the border. I mean, it's a good fight town, right? I mean, they're going to be jacked up for this thing Saturday night.
Yeah, and let me tell you, Dave, I was pretty surprised they came back to Vancouver this year because they were already in the Pacific Northwest earlier this year with Seattle, and I was actually at that event too, and very well received. I mean, the crowd was amazing and really into it. And if you think about it, it's kind of weird actually because if you look at since COVID, Vancouver's been sort of the hot spot for Canada, not Toronto, not Montreal, not these bigger cities. I think it's easy to work with the city. I think the fans show up. Ticket prices are pretty pricey, but from what I can tell, it does seem like it's getting a good reception here. I'll get a better vibe once I go to the weigh-ins, but I can tell you right now that there's a lot of hungry fight fans here. And the other thing I should mention too, there's a BFL card, which is like a regional show that they do on Thursday night before the event. And I believe Dana White's going to be in attendance. So there's a lot going on fight-wise. A lot of fighters I know are going to the fights that are from, locally here. So it's going to be a big week for Vancouver, and we could certainly use it after that Canucks loss last night against St. Louis.
It's early. You guys can't panic yet about hockey, James. You can't do it just yet.
3 games though. It's not looking good. It's not looking good, Dave, but that's a story for another day.
Which on Sports on X. James, tell the other people, everybody out there, where else they can access all of your great material.
Well, I keep it really simple. At Lynch on Sports, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. You can find all my stuff there. I work for a bunch of different companies doing a lot of different fighter interviews, but I put them all on my channel under a playlist. So you'll see a lot of my UFC Vancouver stuff this week, all on that playlist on my YouTube channel. I'll be streaming the media day tomorrow. So yeah, and thanks for having me on, Dave. Again, my favorite follow on Twitter. Love talking to you, man.
You're the man, and I love your content on X. It is spectacular. If you're a fight fan, you got to follow him. Lynch on Sports. James, we appreciate the time as always. Can't wait for the fight card on Saturday night. When we come back here on First Strike, Rob Moreno is going to join us. El Modelo, see what he has on tap. UFC Vancouver talk continues in a moment.
You're tuned in to First Strike, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We continue First Strike. Dave Ross and Rob Moreno here. Great conversation with James Lynch in the last segment. Rob, can't wait to get your thoughts on that. See if the El Modelo projections line up with some of the things that you and I might like this week. But before we do all of that, everybody, if you're not a VSiN Pro subscriber as of yet, no better time than the present. $9.99 for your very first month. So again, it's going to make you a better, not just in the UFC, but certainly in all sports that you have. So you're going to get access to our best bets, our betting splits, and all that sharp content that you've come to know and love from all of our experts here at VSiN. But I always say it, Rob, like for real, not just because we're company men. If you're not a VSiN Pro subscriber, for $9.99 for your very first month, it's a great deal. And if you're new to this betting space in the UFC, it's going to flat out make you a better, no other way around it.
100%. $9.99 is a deal when you look at everything you get on the website. I mean, the betting guide alone, we just dropped the NBA betting guide, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, the amount of detail that goes into those guides is crazy. And you mentioned betting splits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people know, there's UFC betting splits on the VSiN website, so check those out.
You never normally you don't want to be always on the public side, right? You like to find those sharp numbers. You're going to get access to all that when you become a VSiN Pro subscriber. As we mentioned, this card here, UFC Vancouver. Very excited, as James is pointing out, 2 years in a row that they're going back to the same venue, which is kind of cool with the fact that they were in Seattle. It's not that far geographically, and yet they go back up there. And because of that, Rob, as we always talk about, whether it's the O2 in England, whether it was like it was last week at Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, when you go to these countries in these places, you're going to get here specifically a lot of Canadian flavor on this fight card. So do you look at some of those things and say, man, if this fight hits the cards, and I know we talked about one with James, it's hard sometimes to find pathways for non-Canadians, if you will, to get the benefit of the doubt in the judges' scorecard. It's hard to handicap that way, but does it affect anything that the way that you look at some of these fights in a place like Vancouver?
Vancouver, that Canadian crowd, James talked about it, that crowd's going to be lit for this whole fight.
Yep.
And there could be one fight that I think if we can get to the scorecards, there may be a dog barking there, just because they'll have that crowd behind them and may push them over the edge. But we'll see. We know Brazil, that's always a factor that you don't want to weigh too much into it. You don't want to only depend on that. But just like the fighters, we hope we don't have to depend on the scorecards either. So I'm hoping most of these fighters don't have to depend on the scorecard.
Never leave it in the hand of the judges. It was an old boxing axiom, and it works well also in mixed martial arts as well. Let's get to some of the model plays that you guys have this week here. El Modelo. I put you in with the model as you guys, right? So when you have RDR in the main event against Brendan, you are one. You're symbiotic here against Brendan Allen. I do have an official play that I'll give out after our conversation, and the one that we had with James. It is, look, RDR looks like he's freight train right now, right? And we all thought, all right, this is going to be a guy that you don't want to play the jits game. You don't want to go to the ground with this guy. But then he shows hands against Bo Nickel. And I think that is the part now, Rob, that people might go, ooh, not a one-trick pony. He's got different ways to win the fight. I look at Brendan Allen kind of as a poor man's version of that he can win different ways, right? He's proficient with the hands, but we know he loves to either jump the gilly, get the fight down, use his wrestling, use his grappling, look for submissions that way. How do you see the main event playing out, and what is the model showing you?
I love the way you described Brendan Allen. I think that's actually a very good way, because I think sometimes I get excited for Brendan Allen fights because of the style he brings and the surprise submissions he might pull out. But you're right, RDR is probably the more polished and special version of that. And you're right, he's shown he has multiple ways to win. I think the Robert Whittaker fight was huge too. That was a huge win for him to get over a former champion in his fourth UFC fight. So that's huge. The model itself, it does go to RDR. There's the XR percentage we always talk about. Brendan Allen, he's pretty low. He's down at 58% XR percentage. De Ridder in just 4 UFC fights, of course, but he's up at 74%. And as I mentioned, that's against some tough opponents. Bo Nickel at the time we thought that would be a tough opponent, but that was RDR showing that there's levels to the fight game, and he's a veteran in the sport, really. Not obviously younger in the UFC, but a veteran in MMA in general. His striking, you mentioned that it's improving, or he's at least showcasing more of it for us, but it is very low. RDR only lands 2.95 significant strikes per minute with a positive 0.51 differential. But that means he's absorbing very little strikes, right? 2.44 absorbed per minute. Allen, on the other hand, he will have a higher output. He does have a little bit more striking, but his differential's dang near even, so he's eating the exact same amount of shots. And I've talked about this before, where if your significant strike numbers, your output is lower than 3 significant strikes per minute, I hope you do something very well outside of that. And there's something that RDR does extremely well, and that'll be in the grappling. He has 76% control rate in the clinch and ground. Both these guys in their entire careers will have, or do have, 14 submission victories, by the way. That's across their entire MMA careers. But a big difference for RDR will be that 67% takedown defense. Now, he's barely been tested. I think he's only faced 3 takedown attempts against him, so it's hard to really measure that. But I'll be interested to see where Allen wants to take this fight.
Right.
Because these are 2 very skilled grapplers. So we may see, I'm hoping it's not a stalemate on the ground, and I hope RDR is able to show a little bit more. I think he's stronger. He's going to be slightly bigger. He does have, I believe, a 3-inch reach advantage. So I think RDR is going to be able to almost bully Brendan Allen in there and really showcase his skill. Now, currently, that line has me a little reserved at -200, -198, what RDR is at. So I'm going to wait to pull the official trigger on that. The prediction is official on RDR. I like it 100%. Also, the short notice for Brendan Allen, right? Yeah. This is a tough test to step into. But maybe we look at the prop market. I'm not sure where I land specifically. The one that has my eyes just glazed over is TKO plus 350, because I think if there's a stalemate for a possible submission, who says he can't get it done striking? I mean, you said he showed hands with Bo Nickel. He showed everything, actually. Those knees were brutal to the side, and that's where I'm looking at. I haven't officially done it yet, though.
Well, I hope not, or if it does happen, I hope it happens later, because my official play, I do like the over, as we talked about with James Lynch in the previous segment. I do like the over at plus money at 3.5 rounds. Now, what I'm going to be intrigued by stylistically is when they come out, if you're a great grappler, or you believe you're a great grappler, and you're fighting another guy that is also very proficient on the ground, does that cause the stalemate and we see the hands game play out? And that they go back to, say, Kamaru Usman when he was champion and fought Kobe Covington the first time, and we all went, oh, man, this is going to be spectacular. These two great ground guys, and it never hit the ground. Right, and it was Usman that got the 5th round stoppage, right, with it broke his jaw. And it was a great striking match for almost 5 rounds. I don't know that we get that same type of thing, but sometimes it can stalemate itself. That they go, I don't know that I want to play that ground game with you, so let me see if I'm better standing. And then if there is a significant advantage, you could see somebody then trying to force the action, and I'm not sure who. You would think RDR, if he doesn't like the hands game or the knee game, to get the fight down to the ground. So I'm expecting that feeling out process for at least a round or potentially 2 rounds until one or the other feels like they have a strategic advantage over the other. So I'm going to take that plus money stab here, plus $1.15 you can still get here on a Wednesday at the over 3.5, and then hopefully the violence comes later in the Vancouver night than earlier for me.
I like that. I do think it takes time if RDR gets to that point. I think you're right. They're going to measure each other out for a while, knowing what the other brings to the table.
And I do worry about Brendan Allen sometimes being a little bit overexcited in there. Pace yourself, Brendan. Pace yourself for this one, okay? I'm fascinated. I love Jazzy J. I think all of Canada does too, against the French woman here, Manon Fiorot. And Fiorot felt like she got her shot at the crown, came up a little bit short, but she's a bigger woman in this, certainly in this division. Jazzy J is a specialist on the ground, and she looks to finish. You know Manon wants to keep the fight standing, right? You got to think that's where she thinks she has the advantage. What does the model show you here? I think it's a very intriguing matchup.
It's a very intriguing matchup. I'm actually very excited for this one. I'm glad it's on the main card.
Yeah,
this could have even been your co-main event, honestly, because
absolutely.
I think there's title implications, maybe not both ways, because we did see Fiorot just drop that chance, so I'm not sure where she goes if she wins. But Jasmine, if she pulls off the victory, I think that becomes very interesting for the title picture. Now, Jasudavicius, you're right. She's on a special run here. 5-fight win streak. She's 8-2 overall in the UFC. She will actually have a reach advantage on Fiorot. 3-inch reach advantage. Yeah, don't try to use it, but she'll have it. They're actually the same height as well, 5'7". But you're right, Manon Fiorot, she walks in that cage just a bigger fighter. She imposes her size and will, it seems like, in the cage. The striking, now the output obviously is going to favor Manon Fiorot here. 5.58 significant strikes landed per minute with a positive 1.99 differential. She's hard to hit, and she hits you a lot. Jasmine, she lands above 3, so 3.61 landed per minute. And she does have a pretty even differential, so she's going to eat some shots. Right. That's not where she's going to want to focus. They both eat around that 3 significant shots per minute, which isn't bad, but if that's exactly what you're trading, that's not a good recipe for Jasmine. Fiorot, she does have an 80% control rating, technically clinch and ground. Most of that is standing. Most of that is what you talked about, her pushing up against the cage. She only has 9 takedowns across her career, 29% accuracy. That's not Manon's game. Jasmine's game, that's where we're at. 94% control rate in clinch and ground for Jasmine Jasudavicius. 22 takedowns, only 43% takedown accuracy, but she does maintain a controlling position 48% of the time she gets you there. So it will be a strength versus strength battle here. And if Jazz can grab her, we'll see where that goes. The XR percentages, I like when I see this. These are 2 fighters above your usual metrics. So you got 76% for Fiorot, 71% for Jasmine. So they both know how to win rounds in their own respective styles. Yeah. So it's elite striking with grinding wrestler. it's going to be interesting, man. You know, Fiorella's got that in and out style where she wants to beat you up, get back out. If Jasmine can grab a hold of her, she can make this dirty. And this is what I'm talking about. These aren't, now they do have finishes in their careers, but they're both tough to finish in their own right. So if this goes 3 rounds and we see the score, that would be amazing to see 5 rounds of these two. But if this goes all 3 rounds and you got the crowd behind Jazzy J, who's to say she can't pull off a scorecard victory here if she's able to grind out a couple rounds? Earlier, she was above plus 200. If I find her at 200, 210, what I saw earlier in the week, I'm grabbing a piece of that. Right now, she's starting to creep back down. I believe this morning she's
plus $1.85.
Yeah, plus 185. See, so if for some reason it jumps back up, I'm grabbing a bite of the dog. Other than that, I'm not sure. I want to approach it straight. The model predicts Manon Fiorot here, but it's about finding the value in the fact that the model sees this very close, much closer than the line implies.
I love Jazzy J. I've been a big proponent of hers. Cashed a lot of tickets on her specifically by sub, and those sub prices are fantastic. The problem for me there, and I haven't gotten to the window yet on it, can she really control the bigger woman in Manon Fiorot on the ground if she hasn't hurt her, right? If she just gets the takedown and she's looking for position and submission, how do you do that if you haven't hurt her? So I think she's going to have to show something with the hands, and then if that's the case, she could submit her on the ground. But it's a tough woman. And Manon Fiorot,
because we thought that was the recipe from Erin Blanchfield, right?
That's right.
When she got the chance. We're like, oh, just take her down, beat her up, easy win. Fiorot, woman handled her.
Too big. Absolutely too big. It was just too big for Erin Blanchfield. And that's a great example of it, though. So I think Jazzy is even better at, obviously, the submission game than Erin Blanchfield, a classic wrestler. But can she control Manon Fiorot on the ground? That's what I'm not sure of. But I'm with you. $2 dog or better, I'd have to play Jazzy J at that price point. Chito Vera, back in here, I'm just aiming. Zahavi is a force to be reckoned with right now, north of the water. But it's Chito, man. Like, this is one of the toughest guys out there. But I kind of lean the Zahavi side. I wonder if the model is backing up that play.
So you're right. Zahavi's on a tear. He's kind of a quiet tear. 6-fight win streak. His last one over Jose Aldo, mind you, 2025 Jose Aldo,
right?
but Jose still. Aldo nonetheless, King of Rio. You know, their XR percentages for both guys are kind of low. Vera, I kind of see in that chaos style that the model just doesn't really favor. Very similar to Yuri Prochazka. He loves getting in there and just breeding on chaos and just getting into some wars. So Marlon Vera's XR percentage 41%. That's a red flag, obviously. Yep. But Zahavi, for this win streak that he's on, he's only 54%. So he's just getting things done enough. Vera, once again, the chaos. 4.27 significant strikes landed per minute. Great. But he has a negative 1.10 differential. So he's eating more than 5 shots per minute.
Wow.
Zahavi, 4.42 landed per minute with a positive 0.29 differential. So tough to hit, receiving less. Zahavi also 77% head defense. Vera only 59. Now Vera, we know, it takes one punch to make it count because he has 12 knockdowns recorded in the UFC. Zahavi does have 3, but they're more situational than they have been just power punch.
Right, pot shot, right.
Yeah. Surprisingly, if I had to say there's a grappling advantage, it's Marlon Vera in a way. He does have 11 takedowns. He has 18 sub attempts is the major thing, right? And sometimes that's defensively, sometimes offensively, but that's the part to worry about. Zahavi's going to want to keep this standing anyways. He has only one takedown in his entire career. And Zahavi himself has 84% takedown defense. So running this through the model gives Zahavi the edge here. Now, it's the price point that I'm not super crazy jumping on because it does see it close. It only gives Zahavi about like a 56% win probability. That's not high enough for me against a guy like Chito Vera. This is honestly a dog or pass situation. I'm either jumping on Vera, but honestly, it's not that big of a dog price either.
Right.
I think he was around plus 110. I think this morning plus 105. So it's starting to creep down. Maybe if Zahavi flips or if it becomes much closer to a pick'em, maybe it's time to jump on Zahavi. But right now it's a dog or pass situation. Yeah,
about $1.25 we're seeing here on the Zahavi side here. And I'm with you. Like, is the volume there enough? More than likely, you can look at it's heavily juiced to the over 2.5 rounds here at minus 375. You don't see that for somebody with the power of a Marlon Chito Vera in a fight very often. That shows you that more than likely this thing's going to hit the cards. And if it did, I'd probably want to be on as a hobby by decision prop. So if you don't love that price, is the hobby going to knock out Chito Vera? Is one of the toughest guys in the division to get out of there.
We've seen that guy take nasty shots and doesn't even flinch.
Right. So to me, the only way you play the hobby side is by decision, and then you get it at a nice plus money price point. But I'm with you. I don't see enough value right now in the numbers. If that changes before fight day and it gets closer to a pick'em, then I'd probably be on the Zahabi side. Aquara Klang, always mispronounce his name, against the American. And Cody Gibson here, the grappler, we know that. What do we make of this fight here? Can the American hit the cards you mentioned and possibly win a decision-type fight? Or, dare I say, if it does get to the ground, look to submit?
So it's kind of funny you were talking about how to pronounce his name, because I listened to Anik mention his name in fights, and I've heard it so many different ways. So if I pronounce it differently than you, don't hate me. I don't know if it's right either. But Orochi Lang is how I have it.
Chi Lang, there it is.
Yeah.
Orochi Lang, yes.
He's winless since 2023, first of all. He had a no contest last year, decision loss to Raul Rosas. He got served up to Rosas. But Gibson isn't exactly like flying off the division either. He's coming off a submission loss to Damon Blackshear.
Yeah.
He did have a 2-fight win streak prior to that, but overall he's 2-3 in the UFC also. So neither guy has a winning record in the UFC. And be careful, there's red flags here. Both guys have an XR percentage below 50%. Ooh. Cody Gibson, 47%. Orochi Lang, 38%. That is very low. That is not, especially considering he only has about 7 or 8 fights in the UFC.
Right.
Their striking, it comes out to about the same as far as what they're absorbing. The only lane I see is Gibson here. Orochi Lang just doesn't have a lot of metrics that surpass Gibson's. Gibson has better control rate. Gibson has better takedown defense. Everything just says that way. Neither guy has momentum exactly walking into the cage, and this isn't going to be the prettiest fight. But, Gibson's around minus 160. The model sees that correctly. It sees that's probably a very fair price. You're right. How does he get it done? We'll see. But at minus 160, I think that's one of the more straight bets I would place as far as what the model gives me for the week. I wouldn't go if it gets bigger. I'd probably jump on that today after we get off this pod for me. But it sees Cody Gibson. It just doesn't find a way for Orochi Lang to really get it back together.
So you got instead of the Q, you got the Chi. That's exactly the right pronunciation. The Chi Lang. That off. By the way, I do it the over in that if maybe it is a parlay piece over 2.5. It is juiced at minus $1.80. But I think you're right. The Gibson side feels like it's a decent value in this fight for the grappler at minus $1.60. So if he doesn't really look to finish that often and more control on the ground, you could get that over home if you wanted to put that potentially in a parlay piece. So you're looking at Gibson there, and the numbers stay away spot here for Zahabi and Vera right now. I'm with you. I'm going to hop on Jazzy J if that gets back up to $2. She's plus $1.85, and the model likes RDR right now against Brendan Allen. I'm on the over at plus money 3.5 rounds.
Yep, we are. We will find a way to have RDR on our on my betting slip, and that's why it's important to have the VSiN subscription so you can check out the picks page on Friday when we post these picks, because I haven't made up my mind. Worst case, there's always parlay pieces. Drew Dober's lower on the card, minus 500 against someone who probably shouldn't be in the UFC. So that might be an easy path as well.
It's very true. And again, we tell everybody, if you like First Strike, please check out wherever you get your podcast, like and subscribe as we really getting the word out that we are back up, baby. First Strike is back better than ever. Rob, you're the best. Appreciate it. And James Lynch, thank you, James Lynch, for joining the program today. Great content there on social media as well. So before you make those wagers, listen to James's conversations with the fighters, and certainly check out First Strike. Each and every week, we'll be back, same bat channel, this time next week. It's First Strike on VSiN.